The council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal, floating in the void between stars. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated atmospheric pods, each one carefully calibrated to their homeworld's conditions. Hyunwoo stood at the human observation deck, watching the emergency session unfold with growing unease. The holographic display at the chamber's center showed the threat, a red mass spreading across the galaxy's edge like spilled blood. The void swarm, ancient, hungry, unstoppable. "They're waking up ahead of schedule," said Taeyang quietly, standing beside Hyunwoo. The military advisor's face remained calm, but his fingers drummed against his tablet, a nervous habit he'd never quite broken. On the main floor, the Turellian representative raised 3 of its 4 arms. The aquatic being's translation device crackled to life. "Our simulations are clear. We have 8 months, perhaps 9. Then they reach inhabited space." "And our combined military forces?" asked the Vrenthi delegate, its crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. "Insufficient." The word came from the Galactic Council's military coordinator, a massive being whose species had no name humans could pronounce. "Our analysis is complete. Every member species evolved in what humans would call paradise worlds. Abundant resources, minimal predators, peaceful competition." Hyunwoo watched Jiwoo lean forward, her young face troubled. She'd joined the diplomatic corps believing in galactic unity and cooperation. Now she was learning the cost of that peace. "What does that mean?" Jiwoo whispered. "It means," Taeyang said softly, "that nobody here knows how to fight." The coordinator continued. "The Void Swarm operates on principles of total aggression, overwhelming force, relentless pursuit. Our military personnel are trained, yes, educated certainly, but they lack the fundamental drives that make warriors effective." A murmur rippled through the chamber, not of voices, but of sounds no human ear was meant to hear. Concern manifesting in clicks, hums, electromagnetic pulses, and chemical releases. The Lumini representative spoke next, its voice like singing glass. "Then we must adapt. Evolution took millions of years to shape us. We don't have millions of years. We have months." "You're proposing artificial enhancement," said the Turellian. "Genetic modification on a galactic scale, not just genetic." The coordinator's display changed, showing complex biological diagrams. "The biological enhancement protocol. We modify brain chemistry to increase aggression, alter hormone production for territorial behavior, enhance reflexes and reduce empathy inhibitors. We create warriors from peaceful species." Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten. He'd read about similar experiments in Earth's history. The results were never good. "The psychological impact would be severe," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. Several representatives turned to look at the human section. Humans were still new to the galactic community, still learning their place. "Humans are scheduled for evaluation," the coordinator said dismissively. "Your concerns will be addressed in your processing phase." "That's not an answer," Taeyang muttered, but the vote was already moving forward. Species after species agreed. What choice did they have? Death or transformation? The Void Swarm didn't negotiate. The Vrenthi voted yes. Their hive cities would be modified together, all 40 billion of them. The Turellians agreed. Their oceanic worlds would become breeding grounds for warrior castes. The Lumini accepted. Their crystalline consciousness would be darkened with rage and violence. 44 species voted to change themselves. 3 abstained, uncertain. "None voted against, and humans?" the coordinator asked. Hyunwoo looked at Taeyang, who gave a slight shake of his head. "They didn't have authorization to commit humanity to this. They were observers only." "We need time to consult with Earth," Hyunwoo said carefully. "This is a significant decision." "Time is what we lack," the Lumini representative said, but not unkindly. "However, humans are a recent addition to our community. We will process you last. You have 18 months to prepare." The session ended. The representatives departed to their worlds to begin the transformation. Hyunwoo, Taeyang, and Jiwoo remained in the observation deck, watching the chamber empty. "They're making a mistake," Taeyang said quietly. "You can't know that," Jiwoo replied, but her voice was uncertain. "I've studied warfare for 20 years, Taeyang said. Earth's history is full of attempts to create perfect soldiers, super soldiers, warriors without fear or mercy. It never works the way people hope." Hyunwoo pulled up his communication link. "I need to report this to Earth. They'll want to know what's coming." Over the following weeks, reports began filtering in from across the galaxy. The enhancement process had begun. Hyunwoo read them in his quarters late at night, unable to sleep. The Torellians were first. Their genetic structure was simple enough to modify quickly. Within a month, the first enhanced warriors emerged from their processing centers. The reports described them as aggressive, powerful, and deeply troubled. Torellian culture had been built on artistic expression and philosophical debate for 10,000 years. Now their people fought each other over minor disagreements, unable to control their new impulses. The Vrenti were next. Their hive structure made mass enhancement efficient, but their enhanced soldiers struggled with the hive-mind connection. Aggression didn't flow well through collective consciousness. Individual Vrenti began acting independently, a concept foreign to their entire civilization. Their cities descended into chaos as enhanced warriors rejected traditional hive protocols. Da-Yoon sent Hyunwoo a private message. The xenobiologist had been stationed on Illumini world, studying their unique crystalline biology. Her report was clinical, but Hyunwoo could read the horror between the lines. "The Lumini empathy network is their defining characteristic," she wrote. "They feel each other's emotions across their entire species. The enhancement protocol has severed those connections. They're isolated in their own minds for the first time in their existence. Many are experiencing what humans would call psychotic breaks. They don't understand individual consciousness. It's like being born into solitary confinement." Hyunwoo forwarded the report to Earth with his own notes. The response came back within hours. "Continue observing. Avoid commitment to enhancement protocol. Prepare contingency plans." Taeyang spent his time differently. He buried himself in Earth's military archives, reading everything from Sun Tzu to modern strategic theory. Jiwoo found him one evening surrounded by holographic displays showing ancient battles. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "Patterns," Taeyang said. "The Council thinks they can create warriors by changing biology. But warfare isn't biology, it's psychology, strategy, culture. You can't inject that into someone's genes." "So, what do real warriors need?" Taeyang gestured at his displays. "Thermopylae, Cannae, D-Day. Discipline, training, experience, understanding when to fight and when to retreat. Rage is easy. Control is hard." 6 months passed. The galaxy was transforming itself into something new and terrible. The enhanced forces were gathering, training, preparing for the Void Swarm's arrival, but the training wasn't going well. Commanders struggled to maintain order. Enhanced soldiers fought with fury, but without coordination. Hyunwoo attended another council session. The mood was different now, less hopeful, more desperate. "The Void Swarm has accelerated," the coordinator announced. "They'll reach border systems in 3 months. 3 months, not 9, not even 6. "Are we ready?" someone asked. The coordinator hesitated. That hesitation told Hyunwoo everything he needed to know. "We have warriors," the coordinator finally said. "Whether they're ready is another question." After the session, Hyunwoo walked the station's observation deck with Taeyang. Below them, a Torellian transport passed by, carrying enhanced soldiers to the front lines. Through the viewport, Hyunwoo could see them moving in their tanks. "Aggressive, powerful, miserable." "Earth sent orders," Hyunwoo said quietly. "We're to report for enhancement processing in 2 months. Humanity's turn." Taeyang didn't respond immediately. He just stared at the transport ship, watching the transformed beings who'd given up everything to become warriors. "What if," Taeyang finally said, "we already are?" Daeyoon's laboratory overlooked the Lumini healing gardens, though they weren't gardens anymore. The crystalline beings who once meditated there in shared consciousness now stood alone, separated by invisible walls of modified psychology. She watched one of them strike another over a perceived slight. Balance among Luminae. It was like watching stars fight each other. Her research notes were extensive now. 18 months of documentation. 18 months of watching peaceful species tear themselves apart from the inside. Subject observation day 412. She recorded into her device. The Luminae continue to deteriorate. 3 more cases of complete psychological collapse. They keep reaching for their empathy network and finding nothing. Like humans trying to breathe underwater. They weren't built for isolation. A message arrived from Wu Jin, her friend from the academy. He was captaining a patrol vessel now, monitoring the border regions. His crew was mixed species and his reports were concerning. My Tyrellian crew members are struggling, his message said. They were artists before the enhancement. Painters, musicians, storytellers. Now they can barely control their anger. Yesterday, 2 of them got into a fight over food rations. Over food, Dayun. We have more than enough food. The fight wasn't about need. It was just violence for violence's sake. Dayun replied with what advice she could offer. Psychological techniques, meditation practices, anything that might help beings cope with brains that no longer felt like their own. But she knew it wasn't enough. You couldn't meditate away a fundamental change to your neural structure. The Vrenthi were perhaps suffering worst of all. Their entire civilization was built on collective thinking. The hive mind had guided them for 1,000,000 years, but enhanced Vrenthi couldn't maintain the connection properly. Their aggressive impulses disrupted the delicate neural links that bound the hive together. Dayun had visited a Vrenthi world last month. What she saw there still haunted her dreams. Hive cities in chaos. Individual Vrenthi wandering aimlessly, cut off from the collective consciousness that had defined their entire existence. Some stood motionless for days, unable to process independent thought. Others attacked anything that moved, overwhelmed by impulses they couldn't share or dilute through the hive mind. She sent her reports to the Galactic Council weekly. Detailed, documented, impossible to ignore. They ignored them anyway. The enhancement is necessary, came the standard reply. Short-term difficulties are expected. The species will adapt, but Dayun had studied xenobiology for 15 years. She knew what she was seeing. This wasn't adaptation. This was destruction. Meanwhile, humanity continued its normal operations. Human military forces trained as they always had. No genetic modifications, no hormone treatments, no enhancement protocols. Earth had received the Council's recommendations and quietly filed them away. Taeyang attended the military coordination meetings as an observer. He watched the enhanced forces train and saw the problems immediately. The Tyrellian battalions fought with incredible fury but no strategy. They charged forward without thinking, driven by their new aggressive impulses. Simulated battles ended in disaster as units abandoned their positions to pursue enemies, leaving their flanks exposed. The Vrenthi were worse. They'd been excellent coordinated fighters when they could share thoughts through the hive mind. Now they attacked in confused swarms, each warrior acting independently, getting in each other's way. Their commander shouted orders that were followed inconsistently or not at all. The Luminae forces were perhaps the most tragic. They'd been modified to suppress their empathy and enhance their rage responses. They fought with suicidal intensity, unwilling or unable to retreat even when tactically necessary. In simulations, entire Luminae units would be wiped out rather than fall back to defensive positions. This is going to be a disaster, Taeyang told Hyun-woo over a private dinner in the human quarters. Ji-woo was there too, looking older than she had 18 months ago. The idealistic young aide had seen too much. But what can we do? They've already committed. Billions have been modified across dozens of species. We can refuse, Taeyang said. When Earth's turn comes, we can say no. The Council won't accept that, Hyun-woo said. They'll see it as humanity refusing to contribute. Refusing to sacrifice like everyone else has. Is it sacrifice if it makes you weaker? Taeyang asked. Hyun-woo had no answer to that. The training continued. Taeyang watched and took notes. He noticed something the Council military coordinators seemed to miss. The enhanced soldiers were aggressive, yes. Powerful, certainly. But they'd lost something crucial. Discipline. Real warriors, Taeyang knew from Earth's history, needed more than aggression. They needed the ability to control that aggression, to turn it on and off as situations demanded, to rage in battle but show mercy in victory, to advance when appropriate and retreat when necessary. The enhanced forces had none of that. They were all accelerator and no brake, all fury and no wisdom. He started compiling his observations into a report, not for the Council who wouldn't listen, but for Earth, for the human military commanders who would soon face a terrible choice. Da-Yun sent another message to Hyun-woo. I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of the enhanced species. The pattern is consistent across all of them. They're not becoming warriors. They're becoming traumatized civilians with violent impulses they can't control. There's a difference. She attached her data. Hyun-woo read through it carefully. Increased stress responses, elevated anxiety, depression rates climbing across all enhanced populations, suicide attempts, violent outbursts followed by crippling guilt. They're suffering, Da-Eun wrote. Every single one of them is suffering. And for what? So they can be soldiers? They're not soldiers. They're victims. Hyun-woo forwarded everything to Earth. The response came from the military command directly. Continue documentation. Analysis confirms your observations. Preparing alternative protocols. What alternative protocols? Hyun-woo wasn't sure, but at least someone was listening. Woo-jin's messages became more frequent and more troubled. His ship was patrolling near the border now, where the Void Swarm was expected to arrive first. His enhanced crew members were deteriorating. My Turellian tactical officer tried to attack me today, one message read. Over nothing. I gave a standard order and he perceived it as disrespect. Took 3 crew members to restrain him. Afterward, he couldn't explain why he'd done it. He just kept saying he felt angry all the time and didn't know how to stop. Another message. One of my Vrenthi engineers is catatonic. She sits in her quarters and stares at the wall. Medical says there's nothing physically wrong, but she can't hear the hive mind anymore, and without it, she doesn't know how to be a person. And another. My Lumine security chief killed himself. Left a note saying he couldn't stand being alone in his own head anymore. He was 300 years old. Survived wars, disasters, everything, but he couldn't survive being cut off from his people. Hyun-woo read these messages in the dark of his quarters, feeling helpless. What could he do? What could any human do? They hadn't caused this, but they couldn't stop it either. The border sensors detected the first Void Swarm scouts 3 months ahead of schedule. The galaxy's worst fears were confirmed. They were coming, and they were coming fast. Emergency orders went out. All enhanced military forces were to report to staging areas immediately. The defense of the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity received its final notice. Human enhancement processing will begin in 2 weeks. All human military personnel are to report to designated facilities. No exceptions. Hyun-woo sat in his office, staring at the order. Beside him, Tae-yang was reading something on his tablet. Old Earth history again. You know what's interesting? Tae-yang said suddenly. Every great warrior culture in Earth's history had the same thing in common. Spartans, samurai, Roman legionaries, medieval knights. They all understood something the Council doesn't. What's that? That warriors aren't born. They're made. Not through genetic modification or hormone treatment. Through training, culture, discipline. You can give someone aggression, but you can't give them honor. You can't inject strategy into their genes. You can't modify wisdom into their brain chemistry. Hyun-woo looked at his friend. You have a plan. I have an idea, Tae-yang corrected. But it's going to require Earth to trust us. And it's going to require the Council to be very, very desperate. They're already desperate. They're about to be more desperate, Tae-yang said. He turned his tablet so Hyun-woo could see the border sensor data. The Void Swarm main force just entered scanner range. They'll be here in weeks, not months. Ji-woo entered the office, her face pale. Did you see the projections they had? The Void Swarm was larger than anyone had feared. Much larger. Earth wants us home, Ji-woo said quietly. They're recalling all human diplomatic personnel. Something about not wanting us here for what comes next. Hyun-woo understood. Earth was making a choice. The question was whether that choice would save humanity or doom them in the eyes of every other species in the galaxy. The border system of Takris 4 died in 17 minutes. Woo-jin watched it happen from his ship's sensors, powerless to intervene. His patrol vessel was too small, too far away. But he saw everything. The Void Swarm came like a living tide. Organic ships that moved with terrifying coordination. They didn't fire weapons. They simply consumed everything. The defense fleet was waiting for them. 50,000 ships, enhanced warriors from 30 species, all eager to prove their modifications were worth the cost. All ready to show the galaxy that they'd become the fighters they needed to be. They lasted 9 minutes. Wu Jin recorded everything because someone needed to witness. Someone needed to tell the galaxy what happened when enhancement met reality. The Turellian assault wing charged forward first. Thousands of ships, their crews burning with artificial aggression, screaming battle cries in their liquid voices. They broke formation within seconds, each captain trying to be first to engage the enemy. No coordination, no strategy, just rage and competition. The Void Swarm split them apart like water flowing around rocks. Individual Turellian ships fought brilliantly for a few seconds before being overwhelmed. They never stood a chance. The Vrenthi Swarm tried next. They'd been trained to fight as a coordinated mass, leveraging their hive mind connection. But their enhanced warriors couldn't maintain the mental links properly. Their swarm fragmented into confused clusters. Some groups attacked, others retreated. Many just circled aimlessly, waiting for hive instructions that never came clearly through their modified brains. The Void Swarm tore through them methodically. The Lumini held their position longest. Their ships formed a defensive wall, and their modified warriors fought with absolute commitment. No retreat, no surrender. They died at their posts with honor. But honor doesn't win battles. Strategy does. Tactics do. Knowing when to fall back and regroup does. The Lumini didn't fall back. They couldn't. Their modifications had removed the part of them that understood survival sometimes meant retreat, so they died in place, every single one, defending a position that was already lost. Wu Jin's tactical officer, a Turellian named Calmore, watched the battle data with tears running down his facial membranes. "They're dying," he whispered. "We're all dying." "No," Wu Jin said firmly. "We're falling back. All ships retreat to Rally Point Gamma." His crew responded instantly. They'd trained together for 2 years before the enhancement started. They knew each other, trusted each other. The enhanced crew members struggled with their impulses, but they followed orders. Barely. The retreat was chaos. Of the 50,000 ships in the defense fleet, less than 8,000 escaped. 42,000 destroyed in 17 minutes. 3 million beings dead. The galactic communication networks exploded with panic. The Void Swarm was stronger than predicted. The enhanced warriors were weaker than hoped. The mathematics were simple and terrible. At this rate, the galaxy had weeks left, maybe days. Hyunwoo received the emergency council summons while he was packing his quarters. The recall order from Earth was clear. All humans were to return immediately. But the council's message was desperate. Human presence requested. Emergency session immediate. Taeyang looked at the message over Hyunwoo's shoulder. They're going to demand answers. Why haven't we been enhanced? Why aren't we on the front lines? Because we'd be just as dead as everyone else, Hyunwoo said bitterly. What's the point? The point, Taeyang said carefully, is that maybe we wouldn't be. Jiwoo stopped packing and stared at him. What are you saying? I'm saying that humanity has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We know how to do this, not because we're modified or enhanced, because we learned. Through blood and history and experience, one human ship escaped that battle, Hyunwoo said. Wu Jin's patrol vessel, one ship out of thousands. That's not a winning strategy, isn't it? Taeyang pulled up the battle data. Look at how he survived. He broke formation immediately. Didn't engage in glory charges. Kept his crew disciplined despite their enhancements. Retreated when retreat was the smart choice. That's not enhancement. That's training. The council chamber was half empty. Many species representatives had rushed back to their homeworlds to prepare for evacuation or last stands. Those who remained looked haunted. The military coordinator's species had no expressions humans could read, but its voice carried defeat. The defense failed. We have analysis of why. We have projections of what comes next. Neither is encouraging. Show us, demanded the Turellian representative. Its voice was hard now, sharpened by the modifications it had received. The display showed the battle in clinical detail. Every mistake, every failure, every death our warriors fought with courage, the coordinator said. With aggression, with determination. But they fought without discipline, without coordination, without the ability to adapt to changing situations. That's what the enhancements were supposed to provide, the Vrenthi delegate said, its crystalline voice sharp. The enhancements provided aggression, the coordinator said, nothing more. We made them angry, not skilled. We gave them rage, not wisdom. A long silence followed. Finally, the Lumini representative spoke. Its voice was quieter now, diminished somehow. We sacrificed our empathy for this. Our entire culture. For nothing. Not for nothing, Hyunwoo said, surprising himself by speaking. You fought. You bought time. You saved the civilians who evacuated. You did what you could with what you had. And what do humans have? The question came from the coordinator, and it wasn't entirely friendly. You refused enhancement. Delayed your processing. Now we need every warrior we can field, and humanity sits unchanged. Why, this was it. The moment Earth had been preparing for. Hyunwoo felt Tae-yang tense beside him. Because, Hyunwoo said slowly, we didn't need it. The chamber erupted in sounds of anger, disbelief, and outrage from dozens of species. You dare? The Terrellian began. Let him speak, the Lumini representative said. I want to hear this. Hyunwoo took a breath. Earth received your enhancement protocols. We studied them, analyzed them, and our military command decided they would make us weaker, not stronger. Impossible, the coordinator said flatly. Is it? Tae-yang stood up, pulling up his own data. Look at the battle. The enhanced forces were aggressive but uncoordinated, strong but undisciplined. They fought hard but not smart. And humans can do better. The Vrenthi delegate's voice dripped with sarcasm. Yes, Tae-yang said simply, because we've been doing it for thousands of years. He brought up Earth's military history. Images filled the chamber. Ancient battles, medieval warfare, world wars, modern conflicts. Humanity evolved on a death world, Tae-yang said. We were predators and prey simultaneously. We developed tools to kill because everything around us was trying to kill us. We fought each other for resources, territory, survival. We've been warriors since before we were properly human. That's your advantage? The coordinator asked. A violent history? No, Hyunwoo said, understanding now what Tae-yang was doing. Our advantage is that we learned to control that violence, to use it strategically, to be aggressive when needed and cautious when appropriate, to feel rage but think clearly, to charge forward or retreat based on what the situation requires, not what our instincts demand. You can't inject that into genes, Tae-yang continued. You can't modify it into brain chemistry. It's cultural, historical, learned through generations of trial and error. Every human child grows up hearing stories of wars. We study ancient battles in school. We learn from our mistakes because we remember them. Words, the Terrellian representative said dismissively. You speak of history while we're dying in the present. Then let us prove it, Tae-yang said. The Void Swarm is coming. Your enhanced forces are scattered and demoralized. You need warriors who can think as well as fight. Who can adapt and survive? Who can win? You're offering to fight? The coordinator asked. Unenhanced? We're offering to show you what real warriors look like, Hyunwoo said, hoping he wasn't promising something humanity couldn't deliver. The council debated for hours. Some species were outraged at human arrogance. Others were desperate enough to try anything. The Lumini representative finally spoke the deciding words. We have nothing left to lose. Let them try. The authorization came through that night. Human military forces were cleared to deploy to the front lines. Unmodified, unenhanced, just human. Woo Jin received his orders while his ship was undergoing repairs. Report to Rally Point Gamma. You're being assigned to a human fleet group. Admiral Bora commanding. He'd heard of Bora. Every military officer in the galaxy had. She'd written the tactical manual that 3 species used for training. Before joining the diplomatic corps, she'd commanded Earth's defensive fleets for 20 years. We're really doing this, Calmore said quietly. The Terrellian still struggled with his enhanced aggression, but working with Woo Jin had helped him develop some control. Fighting unenhanced. No, Woo Jin corrected. We're fighting smart. There's a difference. The human fleet assembled at the Corvus system, 15,000 ships. Not the largest force, but organized in ways the enhanced fleets hadn't been. Clear chains of command, defined tactical protocols, flexible strategies, and on every ship soldiers who knew that aggression without discipline was just violence. Warriors who understood that sometimes survival mattered more than glory. The Void Swarm was coming. This time, humanity would show the galaxy what 10,000 years of warfare had taught them. Admiral Bora stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. The Void Swarm was 3 hours out from the Corvus system. Behind her defensive line, 2 billion civilians were evacuating to deeper space. All she had to do was buy them time. 15,000 human ships against an enemy that had destroyed 50,000 enhanced vessels in less than 20 minutes. The mathematics looked bad, but Bora had learned long ago that mathematics only mattered if you fought the way the enemy expected. "Status of all battle groups?" she asked. "Green across the board, Admiral," her tactical officer reported. "All captains confirm ready. Ground forces report General Sang-hoon is in position." Sang-hoon. Bora smiled slightly. They'd served together for years. He understood warfare the same way she did, not as rage or glory, but as a job that needed doing correctly. The council observers were on the command deck watching nervously. Hyunwoo stood among them, with Tai Yang and Jiwoo at his side. They'd earned the right to see this through. "Admiral," the Lumini observer said hesitantly, "your ships are not advancing. Our protocols call for forward positioning to meet the enemy." "Your protocols got 3 million beings killed," Bora said, not unkindly. "We're trying something different." "What different?" the Terrellian observer demanded. "You sit and wait? We sit and think," Bora corrected. "There's a difference." On the tactical display, the Void Swarm entered scanner range, exactly as large as projected, exactly as terrifying, a living mass of organic ships that moved with horrible unity. "All ships hold position," Bora ordered. "Let them come to us." "This is cowardice," the Terrellian observer said. Tae-yang turned to face him. "No, this is strategy. Watch." The Void Swarm charged forward, expecting the same response they'd received from the enhanced forces. A glorious charge, aggressive engagement, easy prey. Instead, they met carefully positioned defensive lines, ships in overlapping formation, covering each other's weaknesses. No glory, no individual heroics, just professional soldiers doing their jobs. "First wave entering firing range," the tactical officer announced. "Enemy is attempting to split our formation." "Let them try," Bora said calmly. "All ships, focused fire pattern Delta. Pick your targets and eliminate them completely before moving to the next." The human fleet opened fire, not the wild, aggressive bombardment of the enhanced forces. Controlled, precise, each ship firing in coordination with its squadron. When one ship needed to reload, another covered. When shields went down, the formation adjusted. The Void Swarm's first wave shattered against the human lines like water against stone. "They're adapting," the tactical officer warned. "Second wave is spreading wider." "Good," Bora said. "Wider means thinner. Battle Group 3, prepare to punch through their center. Groups 1 and 2, cover them." The observers watched in amazement as the human fleet shifted formation smoothly. No confusion, no arguments. Orders given and followed instantly. "How are they so coordinated?" the Vrenthi observer asked. "They have no hive mind, no mental links." "They have training," Tae-yang explained. "Every captain knows the tactical manual. Every crew has drilled these formations hundreds of times. They don't need mental links. They know what to do." Metal. Group 3 drove forward in a tight spear formation, punching through the Void Swarm's weakened center. But they didn't chase glory. As soon as they'd created a gap, they retreated back to the defensive line in perfect order. "Enemy casualties rising," the tactical officer reported. "We've destroyed approximately 12% of their force." "And our losses?" Bora asked. 3 ships damaged, 0 destroyed." The observers exchanged stunned looks. 0 destroyed. After an hour of intense combat, 0 destroyed. On the surface below, General Sang-hoon was conducting his own battle. Void Swarm ground forces had landed on the southern continent, trying to cut off the civilian evacuation routes. 10,000 human soldiers against 100,000 Void Swarm warriors. Sang-hoon stood in his command post, watching the tactical, Displays with the same calm his naval counterpart showed above. They're trying to overwhelm our left flank, his second-in-command reported. Let them try, Sang-hoon said. That flank is holding a prepared position with overlapping fields of fire. When they commit fully to that attack, we'll counter on their weak right. Sir, doctrine calls for immediate response to flanking attempts. Whose doctrine? Sang-hoon asked mildly. Ours or theirs? The Void Swarm ground forces hit the left flank hard. Human soldiers held their positions, firing with disciplined precision. Not panicking, not breaking, just doing their jobs. The enemy committed more forces to the attack, sensing weakness. They sensed wrong. Now, Sang-hoon ordered, all reserves hit their right flank. Armored units, drive deep. Human tanks rolled forward in perfect formation. Infantry advanced behind them. The Void Swarm's right flank, weakened by their commitment to the left, collapsed. Sir, we could pursue, the second-in-command suggested. No, Sang-hoon said firmly. We're not here for glory. We're here to protect the evacuation. Hold the line and let them break themselves against us. Back in space, the Void Swarm was learning a terrible lesson. Human ships fought differently than enhanced forces. When damaged, they retreated. When outnumbered, they fell back to supporting positions. When winning, they didn't chase glory, but consolidated gains. Most importantly, humans knew when to be aggressive and when to be cautious. They could switch between the two based on what the situation required, not what their instincts demanded. This is impossible, the Tyrellian observer said, watching another perfectly executed tactical maneuver. They feel no rage, no aggression. How can they fight? They feel it, Hyunwoo said quietly. They just control it. He was right. On every human ship, soldiers fought with controlled intensity, anger at the enemy, fear for their lives, determination to protect the evacuees. But always, discipline over emotion, training over instinct. A human destroyer took heavy damage, its shields failing. The captain didn't charge forward in a glory attack. She fell back behind supporting vessels, redistributed power to essential systems, and returned to the fight when her ship was combat-capable again. A squadron found itself surrounded. The commander didn't panic or fight to the death. He signaled for support, maintained defensive formation, and held position until reinforcements arrived. This was warfare as humans understood it. Not glory, not rage, just professional soldiers executing their training under pressure. Enemy is breaking off, the tactical officer announced, surprise clear in his voice. They're retreating. The observers stared at the display. The Void Swarm, which had never retreated before, was withdrawing. Should we pursue? The tactical officer asked. No, Bora said immediately. We've accomplished our objective. The evacuation is complete. We hold position and let them go. But you could destroy them, the Tyrellian observer protested. Could we? Bora asked. Or would we chase them into a trap? Overextend our lines? Lose ships in glory pursuits? We won this battle. I'm not gambling that victory on pride. She turned to face the observers directly. This is what real warriors look like. We're not enhanced. We're not full of artificial rage or modified aggression. We're just soldiers who've been doing this for a very, very long time. On the surface, Sang-hoon received the withdrawal order and smiled grimly. All units hold position. Let the enemy retreat. We've done our job. His soldiers obeyed instantly. No arguments. No protests about letting the enemy escape. Just professional acknowledgement of orders received and understood. The Battle of Corvus System was over. Human forces had held the line with minimal casualties. 2 billion civilians escaped safely. The Void Swarm had been driven back for the first time. In the aftermath, Da-un worked in the medical stations treating wounded soldiers. Most were from enhanced species, their modifications making their trauma worse. A Tyrellian soldier with rage he couldn't control. A Vrenthi warrior lost without the hive mind. A Lumini fighter suffering from isolation in his own consciousness. Can you help us? The Tyrellian asked quietly. Teach us what humans know? We can try, Da-un said gently. But first we need to undo what the enhancements did to you. Help you become yourselves again. Wu Jin's ship had survived the battle with only minor damage. His enhanced crew members had struggled but managed to follow protocols. After the fighting ended, Calmore came to his quarters. "I watched the human ships fight," the Turellian said. "They were angry but controlled. Aggressive but disciplined. How?" "Training," Wu Jin said simply. "And culture. And 10,000 years of learning how to be warriors without losing ourselves in the process." "Could you teach me?" Calmore asked. "Not to be human, but to be what I was supposed to be. A warrior who can think, who can control the rage the enhancements gave me." "Yes," Wu Jin said. "We can teach you that." In the council chamber, the mood had changed completely. The representatives who dismissed humanity's refusal to be enhanced now looked at them with new understanding. "You knew," the Lumini representative said. "You knew the enhancements would fail." "We suspected," Yunwu admitted. "Earth's history taught us that warfare requires more than aggression. It requires discipline, strategy, the ability to think clearly under pressure. You can't inject those things into genes. So what do we do now?" the Vrenthi delegate asked. "We've been modified. Our species changed. Can we learn what humans know?" Tae Yang stepped forward. "Yes, but first we need to help your people recover from what the enhancements did. Then we can teach. Not how to be human, but how to be warriors who can control their power instead of being controlled by it." The coordinator was silent for a long moment. Finally, it spoke. "Humanity will lead military operations going forward. Your methods will become standard protocols, and you will help us undo what we did to ourselves." "We'll try," Yunwu promised. "We'll do everything we can." The memorial floated in space above the Takris 4 system, where 3 million beings had died in 17 minutes. It was a simple structure, crystalline and eternal, reflecting starlight in colors no single species could see completely. Each species saw their own wavelength of grief. Hyunwoo stood in the observation room looking at it through the viewport. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Corvus. 6 months of change across the entire galaxy. "They want you to speak at the council today," Jiwoo said, entering quietly. She looked different now. Less idealistic, perhaps, but stronger. The young aide who'd believed in easy cooperation had become someone who understood that real unity was built through shared struggle. "I know," Hyunwoo said. "I've been preparing. Are you going to tell them the truth? All of it? They deserve the truth, even if it's hard to hear." The council chamber was full for the first time since the crisis began. Every species had representatives present. They'd come to hear humanity explain what had happened, why unenhanced humans had succeeded where enhanced warriors had failed. Hyunwoo stood at the central platform, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes, sensors, and perception organs focused on him. Taeyang sat in the human section, calm and confident. Daeun was there too, her medical data ready if needed. 6 months ago, Hyunwoo began, humanity refused the enhancement protocols. Many of you saw this as cowardice, selfishness, a refusal to sacrifice what every other species had sacrificed. Today I'm going to explain why we refused, and why we were right to do so. He brought up Earth on the central display, blue and green, deceptively peaceful from space. This is humanity's homeworld. By galactic standards, it's what we call a death world. Extreme weather, aggressive predators, limited resources in many regions. Humans evolved here, competing with everything around us for survival. Images of Earth's animals appeared. Lions, bears, sharks, venomous snakes. We weren't the strongest species on our world. We weren't the fastest or the most venomous, but we survived because we learned to think, to plan, to work together, to create tools and strategies. The images shifted to ancient human warfare, Stone Age tribes, Bronze Age armies, iron weapons and cavalry. 10,000 years ago, humans began fighting each other, not occasionally. Constantly, we fought over food, territory, resources, beliefs. We developed weapons specifically to kill other humans. We created strategies for warfare. We studied it, refined it, learned from our mistakes and our victories. More images. Medieval battles, gunpowder, modern warfare. Nuclear weapons, we never stopped. Century after century, humans fought. Sometimes for good reasons, often for terrible ones. But through it all, we learned. Every generation studied the wars that came before. We wrote books about strategy. We built schools to teach military tactics. We created an entire culture around warfare. Hyunwoo paused, letting the images speak. But here's what matters. We also learned to control it, to be aggressive when necessary and peaceful when possible, to switch between warrior and civilian as situations demanded. Because humans who couldn't control their violence didn't survive long enough to have children. He brought up the enhancement protocols. When you offered to modify humanity, our military commanders studied your proposal carefully. They saw immediately what would happen. You were trying to create aggression without the culture to control it, rage without the discipline to direct it. You were making the same mistakes we'd made thousands of years ago. The Turellian representative stood. You're saying we were fools? No, Hyunwoo said gently. I'm saying you were desperate, and in your desperation, you made the best choice you could with the information you had. But you didn't have humanity's information. You didn't have our history. Taeyang stood and walked to join Hyunwoo at the platform. The enhancement protocols worked exactly as designed. They made you aggressive, territorial, combat-ready, but they couldn't give you 10,000 years of cultural knowledge. They couldn't teach you when to fight and when to retreat, when to be aggressive and when to be cautious, when to show mercy and when to be ruthless. He brought up the battle data from both conflicts. At Takris 4, enhanced forces fought with incredible courage and fury. But they fought without coordination, without strategy, without the ability to adapt. At Corvus, human forces fought with discipline. We retreated when necessary, advanced when appropriate, worked together because we'd trained together. Not because of genetic programming, but because of cultural transmission. Da-Yun joined them, her medical data appearing on the displays, and the psychological cost was enormous. Enhanced beings suffered because you didn't just modify their bodies. You changed their minds. Turellians who'd been artists became violent without understanding why. Frenthi who'd lived in collective consciousness were suddenly, terribly alone. Lumini who'd felt everyone's emotions were trapped in isolated minds. The chamber was silent. The data was undeniable, so what now? The Lumine representative asked quietly. We can't undo the enhancements completely. The modifications are too deep, too fundamental. No, Da-Yun agreed, but we can help you cope with them. We can teach you techniques humans developed over thousands of years to control aggressive impulses. Meditation, disciplined training, psychological tools. You'll never be exactly who you were before, but you can learn to be someone new. Someone who has power but isn't controlled by it. Sang-hoon appeared on the display from his training facility. Over the past 6 months, we've been working with enhanced soldiers from 30 species, teaching them human military protocols, not to make them human, but to give them the tools we developed. Discipline, strategy, controlled aggression. Images showed mixed training units, humans working alongside enhanced Turellians, teaching them formation fighting. Frenthi learning to coordinate without the hive mind through vocal commands and hand signals. Lumine practicing tactical retreats and understanding that survival can be honorable. It's working, Sang-hoon continued. Slowly, but they're learning. Not to fight like humans, but to fight like warriors. Thinking warriors who can use their enhanced abilities effectively. Wu Jin appeared on another display, broadcasting from his ship. My crew is enhanced. Most of them struggled terribly at first. But with training and support, they're becoming something new. They have the aggression the enhancements gave them, but they're learning to control it, direct it, use it as a tool instead of being ruled by it. Calmore appeared beside him, the Turellian looking healthier than he had in months. Humans showed us that being a warrior isn't about rage. It's about skill, discipline, knowing yourself well enough to control your power. The enhancements gave us strength we didn't ask for. Humans are teaching us how to master that strength. The council coordinator spoke, its voice heavy with something that might have been regret. Humanity could have let us fail, could have watched us destroy ourselves with our own modifications. Instead, you're helping us recover. Why? Hyunwoo thought carefully about his answer. Because we understand. Earth's history is full of nations that tried to create super soldiers. Enhanced warriors. It never worked the way they hoped. We made those mistakes so you wouldn't have to. But you made them anyway because you didn't know our history. Now we can help you learn from them. And because it's the right thing to do, Jiwoo added quietly. You didn't modify yourselves for glory or conquest. You did it to survive, to protect your people. That deserves respect even if the method was flawed. Over the following months, the rehabilitation programs expanded. Human trainers worked across dozens of worlds, teaching enhanced beings to cope with their modifications. It wasn't easy. Some enhanced individuals never fully adjusted. But many found balance, learning to be warriors who could think as well as fight. The military protocols were standardized across the galaxy. Human tactical manuals became required reading. Training emphasized discipline and coordination over individual aggression. Battle simulations focused on strategy and adaptation, and slowly the tide turned against the Void Swarm. Not because the enhanced forces became stronger, but because they became smarter. More controlled, more coordinated. Daeun worked in a rehabilitation center on a Lumine world, helping beings cope with their artificial isolation. She taught them meditation techniques humans had developed, ways to find peace in a single mind when you'd spent your whole existence connected to thousands. Will it ever feel natural? One Lumine asked her sadly. Being alone in my head? No, Daeun said honestly, but it will feel manageable. You'll learn to find strength in individual consciousness. It's different from what you had before, but it can be meaningful in its own way. Humans live like this all the time. We can teach you how. Taeyang ran training programs for military commanders, teaching them human strategic thinking. He showed them battles from Earth's history, explained the theories behind tactics, taught them to think several moves ahead. War is like chess, he told a class of mixed species officers. Aggression has its place, but strategy wins games. You need to know when to attack and when to defend, when to sacrifice pieces and when to protect them. The enhancements made you aggressive. Now we're teaching you to be smart. Bora coordinated fleet operations across multiple systems, integrating enhanced forces with human protocols. She was patient, but demanding, expecting the same discipline from every species that she demanded from humans. I don't care about your modifications, she told a Turellian squadron leader who'd lost formation during a drill. I care about your training, your discipline, your ability to follow orders and execute tactics. The rage in your genes is just biology. The warrior in your mind is what matters. Build that. A year after the crisis began, the galaxy looked different. Enhanced species were learning to live with their modifications. Human military thinking had become standard. The Void Swarm was being pushed back steadily through coordinated strategic campaigns. But the cost was never forgotten. The memorial above Takris 4 remained as a reminder. 3 million beings who died because desperation led to poor choices, because modification was chosen over understanding, because aggression was valued over wisdom. Yenwu visited the memorial regularly. Sometimes other humans joined him. Often representatives from other species came too. They stood together in shared grief and shared learning. One day the Lumini representative found him there. I've been thinking, the crystalline being said, its voice like quiet music, about what we sacrificed. Our empathy network, our shared consciousness. We gave up what made us who we were, trying to become something we thought we needed to be. I'm sorry, Hyunwoo said. Don't be. We made our choice. But I wonder sometimes what would have happened if we'd asked humans for help before we modified ourselves. If we'd learned from your history instead of trying to rewrite our biology. We might have failed anyway, Hyunwoo said honestly. History doesn't guarantee success. But at least you would have failed as yourselves. Not as something you were forced to become. That's the tragedy, isn't it? The Lumini said. You were warriors all along. Natural warriors. You just didn't look like what we expected warriors to look like, so we never thought to ask. And by the time you realized, Hyunwoo said quietly, millions had already paid the price. They stood together, watching starlight play across the memorial, representing two species. One that had changed too much, too fast. One that had learned through 10,000 years of pain that some things can't be rushed. Will we win this war? The Lumini asked. Yes, Hyunwoo said with certainty. Because now we're fighting smart. Together. Using strategy instead of just rage. The Void Swarm is strong, but they're not adaptable. We are, especially now that enhanced species are learning human military thinking. Humanity's gift to the galaxy, the Lumini said. No, Hyunwoo corrected gently. Earth's gift. 10,000 years of warfare, suffering, and learning given freely so others won't have to pay the same price we did. That's what makes it meaningful. Back on Earth in a quiet military academy, young cadets from dozens of species trained together, enhanced and unenhanced, learning side by side. They studied Sun Tzu and Clausewitz. They drilled formations and practiced tactical thinking. They learned that being a warrior wasn't about biology or modification. It was about discipline. Strategy. The wisdom to know when violence was necessary and the strength to stop when it wasn't. They learned to be warriors the way humanity had always been warriors. Not through genetics or enhancement, but through culture, training, and the hard-won knowledge that real strength comes from control, not rage. And across the galaxy, species that had nearly destroyed themselves learning to fight discovered something unexpected. They were learning to live again too, not as what they'd been before, not as what the enhancements had made them, but as something new. Warriors who could think, fighters who could feel, beings who had power but weren't defined by it. It would take generations to fully heal what the crisis had broken. But healing had begun, and humanity, the species that had been warriors longer than any other, stood ready to help guide that healing, not because they were better, but because they'd learned these lessons the hard way, through blood and history, and knew them well enough to teach.